Today I want to tell you more about the combat in Albion Online. As you may be aware, I created a video where I explained the very basics of the game just a couple of weeks ago. However, one of my main critiques at the time was the combat, and basically ever since I first started playing about a year and a half or so ago, the combat has always been one of my most critical aspects whenever I am explaining this game to other people. It seems a little bit bare bones. Now, for transparency's sake, I do want to let you know that indeed this is part of a paid promotion, but of course, I'm always going to be giving you my honest opinion, and today I want to be talking primarily about PvE as well as PvP. Now, the game is set to release in just a couple of months from now, and that does mean that the combat that you're about to see in this video is probably also going to be the combat that you should expect when the game finally launches. They did make a lot of improvements over time, basically in particular on the PC version of the game. It runs a lot more smoothly and the combat is a lot more interesting, but this is more than likely what you should expect from the final version of the game as well. Now, as you can see, I made quite a bit of progress in the game so far. I basically continued leveling up for a couple more hours, and I managed to get to the point where I got full tier 3 set right here when it comes to my gear, and then also a tier 4 weapon. I'm currently running with the Adept's Cursed Staff. Now, this is nowhere near the highest level of gear in the game, but it's more than likely what you should expect after spending about, I would say about 4 to 5 hours or so on your first character. Now, the first thing to note about Albion Online is that when you die out in the world, you will drop all of your inventory as well as all of your gear. While you will still keep your silver as well as your gold, all of the items that you've got with you will be dropped on the ground. There is basically full loot PvP. Now, generally speaking, crafting your gear isn't the most difficult thing in the game, but it is a very important thing to keep in mind. If you die, you lose all the stuff that you are carrying. That, combined with the fact that all of the markets are local, means that sometimes you need to take the risk of moving all of your stuff over from one area of the map to another. And of course, that can be a very risky undertaking. However, the rewards can be used as some items will be significantly more pricey in different zones in the world. One of the things that you may have already noticed right now at the bottom of the screen is that currently I really don't have a whole lot of additional skills equipped. And the reason for that is that the game actually has all of its skills and abilities stuck to the gear that you are currently using. So if you have a quick look right here at my staff, the Adept's Cursed Staff, I can choose between a couple of different abilities. Now, this is indeed going to be the tier 4 staff. If you want to be focusing on being a warlock, I thought that would be a fun test because I haven't actually tried that out before in the past. But I can go ahead and select a couple of different abilities. Now, over time, I will be unlocking more and more on these weapons as well. As you can see right now, currently on my queue, well, I really only have one choice right here to get the Vile Curse. Places a Vile Curse on the target, dealing 36 damage every 2 seconds, and it stacks up to 4 times, so I can go ahead and select that. However, for my W ability, I already do have a couple of options. I can choose between the Armor Piercer. A demonic beam shoots out in a straight line. All enemies hit take 114 damage and have their armor and magic resist reduced. And then I can also choose to go with a Cursed Beam. Deals 153 damage up to 5 times to an enemy. You know what? I think for the purposes of this video, I'll go ahead and pick up the Armor Piercer. And basically what this means is that right now, this weapon will be giving me a couple of different skills. Now, the same can be said for my other pieces of gear here as well. So, for example, the rope that I currently have equipped, this one can be used to, for example, go with Mend Wounds, which is most definitely going to be helpful if you plan on playing solo, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing in this video. But on top of that, I can also increase my damage with it for an additional 8%, which should be quite helpful. On top of that, we, of course, have got the helm, as well as the boots right here. And on all of those, I can basically just increase the different, specializations that I'm trying to go for right here. So I'll pick up the Force Field here as well. Knocks back all enemies around you for a whole bunch of meters, dealing 105 damage to them too. And I think I'll go ahead and get some additional damage and heal power here too. Now, here's the cool thing of Albion Online that I really like, and that's the fact that there are no classes in the game. When you first create your character, you literally just get to customize it for a little bit, and maybe the customization isn't the strongest suit of the game, but regardless, you do not have to choose a class. Instead, all of the skills and the gear and whatnot that you are using can be crafted, and you can learn to be equipping other sets of gear as well. Now, clearly, my character so far has been focusing on being a mage, and that's exactly the idea that I had in mind for this character. But if I wanted to, I could switch over to being like an archer or like a warrior at any given moment in the game. The only thing that I need to do is go ahead and unlock all of the different specializations here on the Destiny board as well. But if you haven't checked out the first video, I'll leave a link to that one down below in the description of this one, because that one goes a lot more in depth on what the Destiny board is all about. Anyway, what I'll go ahead and do is return this character to the very first zone that I was in. Because as you can see right here, it's quite crowded. There's actually a lot of people playing right now, even though it's really early on into the morning. Regardless, I'm going to return this character to the very first zone that we first got to, because I want to be showing you expeditions first off. This is something that actually recently got added. I don't think this was in the game when I first started playing it, but this will more than likely be your first like real solo PvE kind of encounter that you will come across in the game. It isn't the most exciting thing in the world. I do have to warn you about that, but it's most definitely a really cool aspect, and I actually really like that they are adding this into it. So I currently made it all the way back to the very first starting village. This is literally the very first area that this character got to after completing the tutorial zone, and you will very quickly notice that these massive portals will show up. Now what I did is actually put all of the junk that I had in my stash, just because I don't want to lose it in the progress, or in the process rather. But one of the cool things about the expeditions is that while the world and whatnot is completely and utterly dominated by full loot, expeditions actually just simply send you back to the beginning of the dungeon if you end up dying. So one thing you may notice right here is that there is indeed a recruiter here. Loco, are you brave enough to heed the king's call and join us in an expedition? And what I can go ahead and do is do a tier 3 expedition right here. It's a single player one, but there are also group ones as well as tier 4, 5, and 6. I think there may actually be a tier 7 as well, but regardless, as you can see, I can get a bunch of rewards and start off with this journey right here. Creatures in this region are lethal and will kill you if you are knocked out. When killed, your carry items may break and will drop to the ground, which is interesting because in this area, actually, I don't think that dying is that big of a deal. I ended up dying here once, and so far, it didn't seem to be all too impactful. But one thing you'll notice here is that we get a bit of an assignment right here to the right side of the screen, and this is basically just going to be like a solo encounter here, where you can focus on dealing a little bit of damage, getting yourself some additional fame, as well as some additional resources that you can once again use to use all of your different abilities and basically upgrade your skill and basically become a little bit more powerful. Now, one of the things that you will notice here is that these enemies will indeed be casting some spells themselves as well, which wasn't really a thing initially when I first started playing. I'm not gonna lie, by the way, I really do like this Warlock staff. It's pretty awesome. Look at the amount of damage that it does right there in just a second. That's actually a lot of damage that we can deal there. But regardless, this is, I think, a reasonably new addition to the game. When I first started playing it, the combat was a lot more bare bones than that. You can see, for example, right there, that has, I guess, a bit of a MOBA kind of aspect where the enemies are most definitely, you know, casting abilities as well, and you are forced to dodge those if you're trying to not take all too much damage. On top of that, you can interrupt their casting, and you basically have to be a little bit more clever, I suppose, about your approach. However, this is most definitely what you should expect out of your first PvE encounters, okay? Now, one thing to keep in mind, right, because most definitely, and one of my arguments of this game has always been that the combat is a little bit too simplistic in my liking. This is most definitely not the most in-depth combat system, nor would I, you know, consider it to be anything but bare bones. There are quite a few spells available, so apparently there are roughly 220 spells in total, and there are most definitely a lot of unique weapons as well, which does make it a little bit more interesting. But compared to the games that this game will directly compete with, you know, basically just other MMORPGs out there in the world, and while this game specializes, I guess, in you know, player versus player primarily, and we will go over that in just a little bit, there is most definitely a very basic combat system right here. I really only have a handful of buttons right here to press at the bottom side of the screen, which is on its own very bad. I mean, there are many games that do the similar, or that have a similar kind of approach, mainly, for example, like Diablo or Path of Exile, which is, you know, they are extremely good combat-based games. And of course, MOBAs out there as well, generally speaking, only give you a couple of spells to work with. However, one of the main arguments that I have for this game's combat is that it feels really kind of slow. I mean, I would really like to see the combat sped up by maybe 50% or so, or maybe even the entire game to be sped up by about that margin, because it feels a little bit on the slower end. Then again, you can indeed complete this game, you know, very casually and just simply grind away while watching some Netflix and, you know, maybe watching, you know, some YouTube videos or whatever. But for the most part, it does feel a little bit too simplistic for my liking, in the sense that PvE type of content, it's simply not the most exciting thing in the world. Now, while when you go out into the world, you will also encounter a lot of dungeons on the world map. I mean, if I show you real quick, basically if you have a quick look, just very close by already, you can see that there are a lot of different camps available. So this Heretic's Mountain Dwelling apparently is suitable for groups of 4 to 5 players. There are also going to be solo camps in basically every single zone that you get to. And that's all, you know, all fine and dandy. Some of these are blue as well, which means that they're going to be significantly more difficult. And of course, you can also see the tier level that is, you know, suitable for this dungeon right here as well. But for the most part, the dungeoneering and like the PvE kind of combat is reasonably basic and wouldn't really be the main reason why you want to play this game. So if you are the kind of player that primarily plays a game for its PvE and dungeon and raiding based content, I don't think you're gonna be enjoying Albion Online all too much, because really, to be completely honest with you, this game is primarily focused around player versus player. It really is the main focus of the end game. Alright, so while I made my way back all the way to the very beginning of where my character started, next up it's time to go for some player versus player content as well. And one important thing to note is that if you want to upgrade to higher tiers of gear, you're going to have to move out into the world. Roughly 75% of the world map is indeed in player versus player area. Now, like I said, there is indeed full loot available, meaning that when you die, you lose all of your inventory as well as all of the equipment that you currently have equipped. However, when you venture out into the world, and currently I don't really have the tools to gather any of these items, but if you venture out into the world and you try and indeed make your way to these PvP kind of zones, the rewards can be extremely good as well, because that means that you can once again get some better gear. Now what I'll do is just simply run to one of those PvP areas and show you hopefully some player versus player combat. Now one of the things that I have noticed so far as well by playing for quite a couple of hours is that this game is not only mostly player versus player based, but it's also very much focused around guild versus guild. So one of the things you have to keep in mind is that there will be people roaming around in packs in those PvP areas. There will be, for example, groups of like 2 to 5 players or so that are trying to fight other groups of those kinds of players as well. And the thing is that if you are playing solo and you're trying to fight against these guys by yourself, you're going to have a very difficult time. Instead, you will more than likely be going down. So I'm not really expecting to get out of this area alive here either, but that's all fine and dandy. I got different sets of the exact gear that I currently have equipped waiting in my bank in the first area anyway, so I can just simply return there and get a different set of my gear. Regardless though, like the PvP combat is very interesting and you can have some epic open world guild versus guild action. But a very important thing, once again, to keep in mind is that you are playing, if you are playing by yourself and you are playing solo, and you're just simply trying to complete different Destiny board objectives, it's very difficult to go ahead and do so. Guilds will provide you with a lot more security, they will provide you with a lot of additional resources, and they will also provide you with a lot of potential income, I suppose. Whereas if you just play it by yourself, the chances of you dying and, you know, you running back to the area that you were already at and you're forced to move around the world just to try and make progress is very, very high. So really what you're looking for as soon as you hit like tier 4 or so is to at the very least be part of a group, or at the very least make sure that you are in a guild where you can be grouping up with a couple of other people just so you can help each other out. It's most definitely a social based PvP kind of system, because if you're all by yourself, you are more than likely not going to be surviving for a very long time. You are entering a yellow PvP zone. Are you sure you wish to proceed? Now there are 4 different zones in Albion Online. The one that we just made our way to is called a yellow zone. And if we hit N right here, we can see the amount of hostile players here at the top of the screen. You can see we are currently in Rowan Wood, a yellow region. And guild versus guild fights are supposed to happen between 5 and 9 UTC. But currently there are 0 hostile players. And basically what that means is that no one that is currently in this area is flagged as player versus player. However, there are also red and black zones, and those are full-on PvP areas where you can see exactly what's going on, and people can indeed kill you as well as grab all of your stuff. Last but not least, there is also a green zone that is basically where our character started off as well. You can see someone is trying to get a little greedy. Mother Mike apparently trying to loot as many things as he possibly can. But basically the green zones, as you may have already expected, are the ones that you start off in, and there is no PvP there whatsoever. So right now, for example, I made it to the area right next to the one that we were just in, and you can see there is a single hostile player over here. He's probably trying to fight some of the people that are trying to gather. However, in this area, in the yellow area that we are in right now, you can already see that the amount of tier 3 to tier 5 resources that we can gather is significantly higher. I don't actually think it was possible at all for me to gather tier 5 previously in one of the green zones. But regardless, the rewards here can be already significantly higher. Basically cutting down these trees and bringing them back to one of the other areas. You can see there's a pack of bears apparently. But in order to gather the higher tier resources, you do need to take a risk and potentially enter a yellow area. Now the next zone that you can also enter is indeed a red PvP zone. Are you sure you wish to proceed? I'm going to. Now I'm expecting to die here, okay? Generally speaking, in my experience, at least in past betas, I figured out very shortly that indeed there are a lot of hostile people here. And apparently there are 4 in this area right now. So right now I don't need to be flagged for PvP anymore. I can just simply go ahead and fight someone. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the 4 hostile players in this area are indeed going to be grouped up together. So we'll try and see if we can fight one and you know, potentially fight them to the death. There are also these markers right here on the map, so I'm gonna have a quick little peek, see if maybe they are hanging out over here. Ooh, so I found one. I found a player. Now, he's probably going to have far better gear than me. We do have to keep in mind as well that there are going to be quite a few trees here ready to go. But as you can see, they are fighting in packs here, right? And this is the issue that I'm coming at here. If you are playing this game all by yourself, you're going to be encountering people that are indeed fighting in packs. Now, this is kind of the thing that it makes this game amazing, but also makes this game relatively tricky. Because there is no way I can properly fight this guy. Really, the only thing I can do is try and get out of there, because they will always be fighting you in packs like this as soon as you enter a zone like the one that we are currently in. Now, I'm desperately trying to run away, but already you can see I go down very, very quickly, and I can indeed choose to respawn here at the nearest city. But this is more often than not, if you are playing solo, what you should be expecting as well. There's going to be packs of players looking to hunt newbies. And this is where we respawn, naked, in my underwear, back into the closest nearby village. Now, I don't think this this stash right here, the storage right here, is going to really give me a whole lot. Or actually, no, my items are in here. Great. Alright, so to conclude, the game's combat system is bare bones and very basic. However, I would say the strong part of it is that if you decide to play with a group of friends or you find yourself a guild to hang out with, you can have a ton of fun. There are a lot of different weapons available in the game, as well as a lot of different skills. And one of the things that I personally really like is that the game is completely classless, meaning that if you are playing a mage like myself right now and you want to switch over to being an archer instead, that is going to be completely viable and can be done on the same character. If you are looking to play mostly by yourself and to focus on dungeon-based play, so basically any kinds of PvE, you probably are not going to be enjoying Albion Online, because the strength of this game is most definitely its group-based, guild-based, player versus player combat. The fact that 75% of the open world is based around player versus player is, in my opinion, awesome, but you have to be the kind of player that enjoys that as well. One thing to keep in mind, of course, is that you can play this game entirely how you would like it to be. I mean, you don't even need to participate in combat at all. You can just simply be a gatherer. You can also focus on your own player housing. You can play the auction house. You can try and become the richest person on the server. But regardless, PvP and PvE are going to be a pretty tremendous part of the game. And I hope that I explained to you what I like about it and what I dislike about it in this video. I think that this game is going to be most enjoyable when you play it with a group of friends. Say with about 5 people or so. If you are set up in a guild and you play around the same time every single day, I think you can achieve a ton, and I think you can have an absolute blast. If you're gonna be running around all by yourself without a guild and without really anyone to interact with, you probably are gonna be bored within a couple of days. If you've got any further questions, let me know down below in the comment section of the video. Of course, I'll try my very best to answer pretty much every single one of them. If you are an experienced Albion player, please definitely help me also answer the questions that other people may have, because I know a lot of you are awesome. I mean, I've been hanging out on the forums and on Reddit for a while now, and it seems like most players are really, really friendly. So I would say the community aspect of this game is most definitely really solid as well. Anyway, for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.